Hello everyone, welcome back. On our next section of videos, we're going to be taking a look at mapping. Tableau has a variety of different ways that you can use visual representations with maps to show how variables change or vary by region, state, city, country. So we're going to go through the two different types of mapping that Tableau supports. This first one is called a filled map. And the second one that we'll see here is what's known as a symbol map. Filled maps are great when you want to show one variable. In this case, I'm showing sales by state. However, if you've got more than one variable you want to show, like sales and profit, I can use a symbol map where each point has a size related to sales and a color related to profit. So big dots in a dark blue indicate lots of sales that are highly profitable, like we would see in that postal code. We'll change that so it shows city. Sometimes, however, you want to show three things. And the way you can do that is by layering the maps. And these are called dual layer maps, and we'll make a couple of these. So in this case, I've taken our sales and profit by city and layered them on top of the different regions, the western, the central, the southern, and the eastern region. And in a final example, what I've done is taken overall profitability by state and then showing for each individual city within those states how sales and profits are influencing what's going on overall in that state. So let's get started. Where I want you to begin is with the same Tableau file that you used for the previous section where we were looking at making line charts. And as you remember from that section, one of our line charts related to quarterly sales by region. So we're going to kind of play with that and continue with that moving forward. So let's jump over into a new tab. When can you make a map? When are maps good to use? Maps are great to use if you've got any type of geographical variable. So you can tell it's geographical because you get a globe there in blue. So we've got information geographically for city. That means that Tableau knows where city is located on a map. Similarly, we've got country or region. We have cities in Canada and in the United States. We also have the location, the central location of postal codes. And for states/provinces. Let's pause for just a second here while we look at these states. I see that I've got 10 unknown. The same thing happened, you may have noticed, when we took a look at city. We had 363 unknown. And when we looked at postal code, we had 1 unknown. When you're dealing with a map, you always got to look for the unknowns because they will cause problems. You don't want to just leave them blank because then you try to make a filled map, add the color, and you get big gaps. So if there's an unknown, you want to address it. So there's two types of unknowns that we're going to sort of be dealing with today. One, in the case of postal code, is we'll click on unknown. We can edit to try to correct them, filter to just remove them, or show it default position, which we won't use. So I try to edit. And in this case, I've got a postal code of null, which means we don't have the postal code. That's going to be the bucket for all the sales that went somewhere where there's not a postal code. Okay, so, well, that one's easy. So if it's a null, we can just filter it out. So with postal code, let's not look at it. But let's take a different example. I'm going to clear this out. Let's take city. I've got 363 unknown cities. Why is that? Well, probably it's because places like Orange, there's an Orange in California, there's an Orange in Florida, right? Let's double click on this and go to edit locations and see what our choices are. So Aberdeen, Abilene, Allen, Antioch, Apple Valley. My guess is that these cities, well, there are cities with these names in more than one state. So If we look country region, it's locking us into the United States. So it's looking for cities with those names in the US. Well, as you know, we've got cities in Canada too. So rather than fixing it and looking in the United States, let's let Tableau look at the field of country region to see where these states might, or where these cities might be. I'm going to say, okay, this will probably take care of a couple, 10. Now we've got cities in Canada plotted. 353 more. Well, let's see what we can get there. Let's edit these locations. And I suspect that these are cities where, like I said before, there's an Allen in more than one state. So let's let the state that the city is in dictate where to place it. And so if we click on where it now says state, province, none, but let it identify the state, province. Oh, look, and there we go. It's already going to recognize quite a lot of them. And let's say, okay. Right, now we're down to none. So we've addressed dealing with those nulls, or those unknowns, either by removing them if it's a null, or letting the field city or state guide in placement of those. So now that we've got cities on this map, let's start by looking at a symbol map. And to simplify things, I'm going to reduce this to looking only at cities in the United States. So let's put a filter on where our country region is the filter. So do I want to take Canada and the United States? No. I'm going to remove Canada from this list so that we're only looking at cities in the US. Now each of these dots represents the longitude and latitude of these cities. So this is Garden City, Kansas, located in the United States. We'll need to adjust that tooltip, but let's wait. So for a second, let's pause and just think about this background map. Up at the top, we've got a map label. If we click on that, there's two things I want to show you. One is that we can select quite a few different possible background maps. You can play with these as you want, and I encourage you to, but we're going to stick with the light map. Because let me just show you, for instance, by using the outdoors map, is by adding anything other than the light map, you get a lot of additional noise going on, and those dots cease to take on as much emphasis as they would otherwise. So the message we're trying to convey is going to be in relationship to what we're adding to this map, not to the map itself. So we're going to default right now to using a light map. And then let's talk about a couple of the other things that we can show on that map. Let's take a look at background layers. If we select background layers, there's a variety of options. We have a base map. If we remove that, there's nothing behind it. Well, that's no good. Whether or not to show land cover. Land cover adds a level of depth. But if we're really just trying to illustrate with our dots and our sizes or our colors, I think almost all of these things. Terrain just adds noise. One that I do like is coastline, because it places a border on the outside to separate this light gray from the white. You can play with, the different things, but I'm happy with it how it is. And I'm going to click Make It Default so that I don't have to do this again. Now, this is our map. So once we've got the background map set up, we can start to think about what we want to show. And when we're using a symbol map, it's really nice if we've got a couple of things we want to show, like sales and profit. So I'll take sales and pull sales into size. This means that larger dots are associated with higher levels of sales. So we've got lots of sales in New York City, we've got lots of sales in Los Angeles, San Francisco, we've got lots of sales in Seattle. And then there are a lot of places where we have very, very small amounts of sales. Well, I kind of think that all those dots are slightly too small. So I'm going to play with the size of this dot. How big do we want them? well, that's probably too big because there's so many cities down here. We can cover up, we can do a little bit of overlap, but you know, here this is getting to be messy. How big do you want them? You want them as kind of as big as you can get them without them being too messy or obscuring the picture. So now we can see sales based on the color of the dots. And we've got the dots to be about as dramatic as we can, that they don't interfere with one another. And so since we know that sales isn't the whole picture, right? You can sell a lot, but profitability is maybe more important. Let's take profit and drag profit into color. Because profit has positive and negative values, Tableau will do a diverging color where positive is in one direction blue and negative values where we're losing money are in orange. And I'm pretty happy with that choice. Let's click on color. And did you notice how we lost a lot of these tiny towns? Those little dots have sort of disappeared. You can sort of fix that by adding a border. I like picking a color that is enough to make them pop now that I can see these little colors, but not so much that takes over. Black can be a little heavy. I don't know. I'm gonna go with this like grayish. And there's my map. So this is a symbol map that allows us to compare profits and sales by city throughout the United States. So it's quick to see that a lot of the areas with big sales also are profitable. New York, LA, San Francisco, Seattle, but we've got some, like here for instance, Philadelphia, we have positive sales, selling $109,000, but our profits are negative. So by being able to visually identify those places with negative profits and those bright orange dots, it can draw our attention to cities or regions which maybe need a little bit of attention. Before we finish this one up, let's just play with the tooltip. Since we're only looking at US cities, let's remove country region. State will go before city, so I'm gonna cut and paste city. And sales should go above profit. And there's our tooltip. Chicago, Illinois, and maybe that should go Chicago and then Illinois. Maybe we could put that the other way. I'm going to. Pardon me. Chicago, Illinois, sales of $48,500, but negative profit. Now we can quickly interact with this map to get a sense for how sales vary in profits by looking at a map of the United States, which is something that we would understand. Okay, let's title this. We're gonna we're gonna call the sheet map S and P for sales and profits. And then here I'm gonna call this sales and profit by city. And there's our first map. Okay, nicely done. I'm gonna bring out a second video to walk you through the next couple of steps. All right, happy visualizing. Talk to you soon.